Well, I haven't done a podcast in a while with Andrew. I guess he got sick. He went to Vegas, and what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas unless you get sick, and that shit comes back with you. So, unfortunately, that's what's going on with him. Hopefully, we can finish up social engineering here and move on to a different topic. I think today we were really talking about the Cohen lawyer guy trial, whatever. And, I don't know. It all seemed a little phony baloney to me. Not the stuff that he was saying about Donald Trump's integrity. I mean, I believe that. I believe he's a crook, you know what I mean? He's a very successful business person turned politician, and that doesn't automatically make you a crook or an unethical person. But when you start combining all of the other attributes that the person has, that's really how you come down to a conclusion on somebody's, moral compass or whatever you want to call it. With Donald Trump, I don't think he really has one unless it benefits him, which to me is very typical of a hugely successful business person. It's almost kind of like a attribute that you have to be successful, that successful. Not that you have to, but I think that a lot of other things have to come to fruition if you don't have that aspect to your personality to become very successful, like a lot of luck or just having things handed to you, like those types of things. And then to be a politician, you have to say what you think people want to hear, and that goes the same for corporate America. I mean, we're trying to make a deal. You're just saying what you think the other person wants to hear so you can, close the deal. So you just combine all those things together and put him as the head of the president, as the head of the most powerful nation in the world, as they say. That can lead to disaster. But I think it was headed towards disaster regardless. It is, you know what I mean? There's no turning back now. There's no going back to how it was with the forefathers, if you can even argue that would have made it better. It's kind of like when people talk about football games or something, and their team loses by 2 points and they missed a field goal, and they're like, oh, if they would have just made that field goal. Well, if they would have made that field goal there, the whole thing probably would have changed. So they still lost by 2 points. You never know. But the only thing you know for sure is what's actually happening now in the present. And so I think where we're at here with the lawyer speak of Cohen going up against Trump is definitely an avenue for those who want Trump to be impeached. They're trying to open that thing wide open. You know what I mean? They want to get in there with the truck and just drive through like blah, 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 the road to impeachment, and use this testimony against Donald Trump. But I don't think they got anything concrete that would hold up in law to impeach him. You know what I mean? It's not like Monica Lewinsky type of stuff. That's the one thing about Donald Trump. You got to hand it to him. He's not dumb. I wouldn't say he's a stable genius, but he's not dumb, especially when it comes to certain things. And I don't think there's any way in hell he's going to leave a trail that leads back to him. I mean, he's going to try his damnedest not to. And all these other people around him are taking the hits. That sounds like a well-versed businessman in that regard. So that's all I have to say about that whole thing. But then again, it kind of combines everything that we've been talking about on our podcast. And if we just continue on with that narrative, you can see how all these things that are happening right now are falling into our discussion, you know what I mean? And we could just keep going. I think for me, the news today was two different things. The first thing was that the futures market, the stock market, the futures market, that's what people who really trade a lot. They look at the futures market. I've gotten into trading myself here recently, and I'm very bad at it. I got lucky, and I picked Kronos right off the bat, Kron, which is like a marijuana stock, and that thing just tripled. But I put so little money into it that it was like, yeah, I tripled my money, but it was, a couple $1,000 or something. If I had the foresight and the money, looking at the stock market in terms of getting rich, I can see how it happens. If you have $100,000 and it triples, now you have $300,000. Just the interest alone that you can accrue off of that made you a lot more money than a couple grand. But I've since then taken that money out and put it into other stuffs and tried swing trading and day trading, and I'm not very good at it. But people who are and make a lot of money, they pay attention to the futures, and apparently last night the futures market went down, and they said it was just a glitch. That's always the excuse. Oh, it was a glitch. Okay. But what's even crazier is that right at that same exact time, roughly, India bombed Pakistan. So, there's some rumblings out there that maybe the reason that the futures market actually went down was because if people caught wind of that, the volatility would have just started flying off the Richter scale. And I say that because I get a lot of this information from a guy named Gregory Manarino, so I'll link his video in the description because I think that he's pretty intense guy, and he knows a lot about the stock market, and he talks about politics and stuff too, so you got to take that with a grain of salt. I think he used to be a doctor, he's just a biased human, just like all of us, but he knows a lot about the stock market. And he made that connection, so for me, I started looking up, Pakistan and India, I guess they're having some issues there at the border, and I was reading through some stuff, and it wasn't really clear why the bombing happened. It's just like there was jets and airspace, and you know how that stuff works. But I came across some other things that were talking about, well, a lot of Indians believe that, terrorism, the head of terrorism is in Pakistan. It was never in Iraq or any of those places, Syria. It's actually in Pakistan. Well, I mean, yeah, it's in Pakistan. I don't know if it's the head of the snake. I think that, just like with anything, terrorism is very broad. There's more than one head on that snake. I mean, you've got terrorists in Syria, in Iran, in Saudi Arabia, and all over the Middle East, and also in Russia. I mean, they're everywhere. Terrorism is not just in Pakistan. But Pakistan has a lot of big-time terrorists there. I mean, hell, I think that's where they got Osama bin Laden, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, Pakistan is kind of where they're at. And India and Pakistan have always had beef. Like, they've always had beef. And they're nuclear powers. So, when I was talking to Andrew about it, he told me, he says, yeah, I mean, that's fear tactics, because I haven't heard why it really happened. And, I mean, yeah, he's right. To bring that up is like a fear tactic, but by the same token, it's a truth. They've beefed for a long time. Mainly, I think it's religious beef. I know Pakistan is mostly Muslim, and India is not. So I think that that's the real main reason. It's most of the time when it comes to terrorism, that's the main reason. I mean, we have American terrorists also here that shoot things up and blow stuff up and that kind of stuff, but they do it for a different reason than religion. Usually that stuff's coming out of the Middle East and those types of terrorist organizations, and when you think that you blow yourself up for the cause and you're going to get a positive consequence from that, and then you have nuclear weapons, it's kind of a really sketchy situation if that ever formulated, what I mean, to the point where it was actually going to happen. I think that's why India and Pakistan going at it, mainly over religion, and having nukes makes it scary. But Israel has them, Iran has them, pretty much everybody has nukes these days. I mean, I'm sure even Africa maybe has a nuke. Probably not Antarctica, but You know what I mean? There's a lot of nukes out there, and I can guarantee you that there's enough crazy people out there that if they get their hands on a nuke, they're gonna launch it. I mean, even dirty bombs, that's low level compared to a terrorist with a nuclear weapon or nuclearized weapons. Um, so the argument goes that the bigger countries like Iran and Syria and Pakistan are giving the terrorists these weapons. And it's funny because then everybody always gets up in arms, excuse the pun, like, oh, well, America gives terrorist weapons too. Yeah, no shit. You know what I mean? If there's another government out there giving terrorist weapons, who's going to fight against them? You know what I mean? So they give militants like the opposing militia weapons so they have a chance to fight against the actual terrorists, and then it turns into a shit show. It's not a real good idea, but they've been doing that since Che Guevara. I mean, they've been doing it forever. From what I understand, that's kind of been part of our, sewn into our history that's just what happens. You know what I mean? And so what hasn't happened is like Russia hasn't given anybody nuclear tipped, any terrorist organizations nuclear tipped bombs. We don't know if they have or not. We certainly hope they haven't. We certainly hope Hillary Clinton hasn't given it to the militia, the other terrorists. We don't want that to happen either. So just because terrorists don't have nuclear weapons doesn't mean that Pakistan won't launch one at India or vice versa. I mean, that could happen. Israel could launch a nuke at Iran. Iran could launch a nuke at Israel. I mean, we could go on and on. America could launch one at Russia. Russia at America. North Korea could just launch one. They would aim it at us, of course. But I still hold true to my belief that when North Korea launches a nuke, it's going to be an EMP. It's not going to hit a land mass. I don't think. I think it's going to blow up and it's going to take out all the electronics. And holy shit, man! If they're able to do that to us, and then I just named all those other people out there with nukes and that war that would probably happen. Post an EMP, and then there's people, and I hope that this is Andrew's premise with all of his tactics that he uses, his methods, I think he would say, is that, hopefully if something like that happened, we would come together, and try to survive and be okay, which that is going to happen, but it's going to be on a very small level. Unfortunately, the major level, the biggest part of our reality, what we're going to go through as human beings, is not going to be that hope and prosperity. Not at first. It's going to be complete and utter destruction, to the point where the aftermath, if you make it through that, is going to be trying not to catch a disease. You know what I mean? Or get radiated. I mean, who knows how bad it gets? And then maybe there is no hope. And the only hope is that when you die, it's not that for eternity, and then again, maybe there is a chance that it doesn't get to that point, and it would have to not get to the destruction phase at all, because once that happens, it's pretty much over. I mean, look at how fast things move now. They just compile and compile and compile and compile. Now we have a quantum computer. A quantum computer works off like an atomic level. It can crack any code. It has this like sweeper mechanism, and I don't know exactly how it works. I'm not smart enough to understand, but from what I watched and what I read, it has a command or whatever inside this computer. I think IBM is the first one to make the program. It's like an operating system, kinda. They can put a command in there, and it just sweeps. It's just called like a sweeper effect or something, and it goes right to the correct answer every single time. Like, what's the password? And it puts out every single possible password it could be. Words, letters, symbols, all of that. Caps locked, not locked. It knows all of the possibilities, and it just sweeps off the wrong ones, and it goes right to the right answer. Boom, you're in. So all this encrypted data and all these things that are already getting hacked. I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest about it. They're hacking into Target, Amazon, and all these places from the server. And that wasn't supposed to ever be able to happen. And this guy stumbled upon the master key where he could go behind the scene and unlock the server encryption and then get all the information off the server. Doesn't even have to go to your computer. And I mean, who really uses a computer for their main uh, computing needs? You know, you use your phone. Most people use their phone. They have an office computer, maybe an iPad, something like that, and then you might have like a laptop or a computer that you use. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people out there that use computers and laptops. We're not going there, but where we are going is the fact that they can already hack into that stuff. They can already get your passwords, but it is a little more difficult. You know what I mean? It's not like it's as easy as a quantum computer, because a quantum computer, shit, that's like flip, right answer, okay, moving on. Whoa, that's insane. So what are the possibilities of that? And then it compounds and compounds and compounds. You start throwing artificial intelligence in the mix, woo, what are you baking? You know, it's gonna that could be insanity right there. But that's where we're headed. You know, we're still manipulating genes. Like I said, I'm paying attention to the stock market, giving it a go in terms of trading. And one of the ones I have on my watch list is CRISPR, because it's kind of gone up and down. But damn, it's like $30 a share. And I can imagine when that first came out, you could have probably picked it up for a couple bucks, you know. And if you could see into the future ish in terms of the usage and how popular CRISPR was going to get, you know, you could have made a lot of money off of that. And not only that, but they've like done things in China, because it's not illegal there to do the manipulation type of stuff to like embryos and whatnot, that they've claimed to have done a bunch of genetic engineering stuff over there and had babies come out into life. You know what I mean? Like they've actually developed and been born and didn't have any, up to this point, no ill effects of the genetic manipulation. I mean, we don't really know what's going to happen over that person's 80 year or so whatever lifespan they live. Who knows? Maybe they genetically remove that so they can live forever. I don't know. But what I'm saying is that things just compound and compound and compound. So if we start shooting off nukes, or anybody starts shooting off nukes, that's going to be that instant in time where we're going to have to decide as a humanity, do we want to have hope and perseverance, or are we going to go to the way of Revelations? You know what I mean? Is that what's going to happen? That it's going to take Jesus himself to come down and just go like a big, huge reset button, you know? What the fuck? You guys had choice. You had freedom of choice. Believe it or not, no matter how socially engineered you've been, you had freedom of choice. And you chose to become socially engineered. And the thing about it, too, is that, like, you can talk about religion and God and all that stuff all you want. And if you're an atheist, that's fine. Be an atheist. But the thing about it is there are some sort of unwritten rules that just apply to existence. Okay, and in each religion they've been identified. Christianity's the easiest one to give an example to, because I know it the best, and that's the sins. You know, let's not be greedy, let's not be gluttonous, let's not have wrath, let's not do those kind of things that are going to lead us down the path of negative consequences. So we have to battle with that eternally every day. The problem is when the social engineering is on top of actual society that just develops on its own, has actually violated those sins to the point where now those things are encouraged. So that's why I feel personally like this is really the time when it all goes to shit, because we are so stuck on just destroying, self-destruction, and not even realizing that that's what we're doing. I mean, we eat like shit. Even the good food that we get has all kinds of chemicals and steroids and antibiotics and all types of shit. I mean, it's really, unless you grow your own food from some sort of virgin seed, you know what I mean? You're going to have some kind of GMO or something. Like, that's where we're at in our reality. And it's very difficult to say, I don't want to participate in that. Because, you know, you could do that, but you're going to have to go off in the forest and live alone, or with a small group of other people that can hack it and not partake in anything that has to do with what's leading us down this path. And I think what'll end up happening, if I had to guess, is that all of a sudden you would find yourself battling against yourself to overcome those sins. And that's why they're there, regardless of your religion. It's something that humanity creates time and time again because they've felt it, they've dealt with it, and they understand that if you don't control that, it's going to lead you down a very dark path. And the really, really fucked up part about it is that these are things that are difficult to control. And so that's where I kind of put the devil in. That's where he comes in this. He's the one that influences you and tempts you and is constantly trying to get you to go down that path. Like, hey, over here, look, it's better, it's funner, it's more entertaining, it's, it feels better, it's easier. Like, just come on over here, guys. Why are you doing all that hard stuff over there? You don't need all that. Like, that's not going to lead you to any different of a place than this path right here. And people just jump right on, like, hell yeah, I want to do that. Some will probably resist it a little bit. But that is the very basic, if it's too good to be true. That is the very epitome of that quote. You know what I mean? And yet here we are just running full steam ahead down that path, trying to blame science and blame politics and blame all this other stuff when that's just, part of it. It's what we've created by making choices that we make as human beings, which is why I still stand by my opinion that when the Bible says in Genesis that we're created in our likeness, it's not angels, it's not any of that stuff. It's the fact that when we read that, we are going to see the word our. We're the first ones to read that and see our. So then we have to understand that, we created in our likeness. So God gave us choice, and then with the choice from God, we choose our reality. So it's in our likeness. We can either choose to destroy all the plants and animals because that's our God-given right, or we can be good stewards and have proper husbandry of the planet, which is way, way far gone, because that wasn't our interpretation. Or even if it wasn't enough people's interpretation, or it was very, very difficult and people didn't want to do it because the devil's constantly over there saying like, what, solar panels, just come over here. Coal's the same thing. It takes coal to make solar panels. Why are you over there doing that stuff? And then you get distracted because you're not paying attention to the right thing. The right thing is that it's overpopulated, we're over-consuming, and all of a sudden we're going down that path of sins. Things that we should be avoiding are things that we're actually doing. And that's why it is. The only reason why it is, because we're doing that. Now, you can say until you're blue in the face if you want that someone else is controlling all this and making it all come out like this. I agree. I just mentioned them. His name is Satan, and he's in the background construing all this up because he wants to prove to God, look at what you made. You made a bunch of fucktards, and I got them. I'm the leader. I'm the leader of your creation. That's what he wanted. That's exactly what the devil wanted. He wanted to be the leader, and God was like, no, I'm the leader. You get to go down there, right? And lead the underground, which that was a smooth move, God. Because now what you have is you have the devil owning shit right now. God is losing to the devil. So it's Illuminati, it's conspiracy theory, it's the devil is what it is. And you can call it whatever you want. It's, when I think of the devil, I think of a, black looking figure with pointy shoes and horns. You know what I mean? When you think of the devil, it might be something different. We can go back to Pakistan and India. The Muslims look at the devil differently than Hindus. But there's still karma, there's still rules, there's still all those things. Although some will argue that maybe Islam is the antithesis of the Bible, of Christianity, and that Mahdi and all that stuff is actually the Antichrist. I don't know how much I believe that. I think it makes a pretty interesting story, and there are some connections that can be made there, but it's all just speculation. There's nothing rooted deep in there that claims that that's what it is. Uh, but pretty much all religions have that same kind of thread running through it. Just how do you want to be treated? That's how you should treat other people. And it doesn't work all the time like that, because if you're insane, you want to be treated. Some people want to get beat up and burned and stuff. I don't know why, but that's just how they're made. And so that's maybe how they would want to treat other people. So that doesn't necessarily work in 100% of the cases, but I think a person that feels that way clearly needs some sort of help. So that's where we can step in and treat them how we would want to be treated. If we needed help, we would want help, because otherwise we're just throwing them out on the streets and then getting pissed off that they're asking us for money. You have to deal with the situation that's at hand. It's either one idea versus another idea. That's where things escalate. That's why wrath is a sin, because it turns into anger, and then it can get real bad real quick. But you have to come up with a solution, and not everybody agrees on the solution. Some people say, "Oh, well, just take homeless people and insane people and try to assimilate them, if they can, and if they can't, put them in a facility." Okay, well, that comes out of your tax dollars, and you're paying for it that way. And you have to trust the establishment is taking your tax money and putting it into the establishment correctly, so that it's actually benefiting everybody and not being a complete waste cesspool of crooked politicians and people trying to get greedy that just waste all the money, and then nothing happens and they blame the solution. They say, "Oh, it wasn't the right solution," and let them all loose because they don't have any money for it. But wait, you just taxed me all that money. Where'd it go? Well, it didn't go into the right places. So there's that. And then on the other hand, you're like, well, don't give them money. Okay, don't give them money. And then when they shrivel up and they die on the side of the road and they get very desperate and start breaking into everything, you've got to pay for it some way. You got to increase the police force. You got to increase the prison systems. And now you're basically giving your tax dollars to that type of stuff instead. So you're paying for it. It's just, what do you think the solution's going to be? Because it has to be dealt with. You can't just pretend like it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? That's the real problem. You can't just sit there and say, well, one way's not better than the other, so just don't do anything. Maybe there's an argument to just letting it play out how it will, too. So, I'm open to everything, really. I think I really trailed off what I was trying to get at. I just wanted to kind of talk on this microphone and get some shit out. Didn't go to work today. I haven't been feeling good for the past couple days, so I just wanted to stay home and rest and not spread my germs. And yesterday was pretty brutal. Today I'm feeling a lot better now, but earlier this morning I was still feeling kind of crappy. So maybe I can get a few things done this afternoon and then hit the ground running again tomorrow. Appreciate whoever's listening to this. If I put it out, I'll probably just leave it in my archives. I don't know. This really is like a cathartic, to sit here and just talk in front of the mic, because I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of shit going down in the world, and it hasn't stopped. I mean, when I was making my videos, I was still talking about the same stuff, because it's still happening. The narrative just kind of keeps going on, moving on. No, Donald Trump hasn't nuked anybody, and neither has North Korea, and maybe they won't. But if you think about what's going on now, if we don't hit martial law before 2020, because there ain't no way Donald Trump's going to win again unless he totally rigs it again, we're going to have socialism coming right around the corner. I mean, especially if someone like Bernie Sanders gets elected. Bernie Sanders wants to take down corporate America, right? All the snowflakes and Antifa are on board with that. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, we'll save that to another day. Thanks again. Talk to you later.